A little bit about the NBA All Star game, a little bit about what's going on in baseball, getting ready for the season. I think pitchers and catchers are coming soon, and we're Sports Live with Steve and Justin. Well, there you have it. How are you, Justin?
I'm good, thanks, Steve. How are you?
I'm a little not feeling a little under the weather today, hanging in there, but I'm in a little different spot. I'm in the auxiliary studio, guest studio, wherever it is, wherever the other setup is. I didn't. This was already set up because Dom was over here and we were doing John Lennon on the other channel on History's Agenda, and it was all set up. And I said, you know what? I'm not spending time setting up the other one because I'm already running late. We, because of the holiday weekend, everyone, we kind of skipped it over till today. Really, all my fault. I just didn't feel that well yesterday. I'm not that great today, but we couldn't put it off much longer than today. So, um, the first thing we wanted to mention is there were some, over the last 24, 48 hours, some major deaths that took place. Um, Jesse Jackson, of course, um, one of one of Martin Luther King's right hand men, and had been around New York, ran for president, and also Robert Duvall. So Robert Duvall, who's known for great movies, obviously The Godfather, the Great Santini is one of them. One of the crazy ones. Um, what do you think, Justin?
Uh, yeah, it's incredible. He lived to 95 years old. He's been such a major part of the movie world for my entire life, really. I mean, obviously, his role in The Godfather is probably most influential. But he did have parts in movies, and it seemed like most of his parts added humanity to whatever movie it was. He played Max Muncy in The Natural. He was a sports writer. Um, I thought he had a really good role there, supporting role. Um, and seeing the baseball world through the eyes of a writer, not the theme of the movie, but he added that element to it. He was also in Days of Thunder, where he played the crew chief. And again, I thought, his role, adding humanity to the movie, where he's in the garage saying a prayer and talking to the car, and he discovers the oil leak. um,
Right.
and Of course, was it Apocalypse Now, where he's on the beach and he's commanding his soldiers to
Yeah.
surf.
I I
Not a
love this.
sports movie, but sports related, and
Yeah.
shows a
I
little
love the.
humanity in an otherwise
I
horrific
I
situation.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It
Smells
smells
like
like,
victory.
and he pauses, and then he looks right out of it and says, "Victory." And his and no shirt on, with his cowboy hat on, and
I can't tell you how many times someone quoted that line before a football or a baseball game growing up, and I always found it comical. And I mean, the movie's not a comedy, but anytime you watch it, any movie that he's in, you stop to watch if it's on. But that scene in particular resonates with a lot of people for a variety of reasons.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely something. Listen, he spent a lot of money making that movie, Francis Ford Coppola, and a lot of stars in it are yet to be stars. Everyone from Harrison Ford to a 14-year-old. His name is skipping me at the minute. The guy from The Matrix.
Keanu
Can't think of
Reeves,
his. No, no. I can't think of his name. Um,
Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
On the boat, a 14-year-old Lawrence Fishburne
Yeah.
on the way up, and pretty much the last movie by, boy, what is it? You can tell I don't feel well. My mind is like blank. Um, uh, uh, the last movie that it's one of those days. Should have
Take your
kept it in
time.
the can. Last movie by whatever. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. So,
Not Gene Hackman.
no. Who played Colonel? What's his name that they
Oh,
wanted to kill?
Charlie Sheen.
The
Marlon
la-
Brando.
the la-
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, and the opening scene with Charlie Sheen
Or Martin Sheen, I guess. Sorry.
Martin Sheen wasted in his room, a young Martin Sheen, and they find him in there and shove him in the shower and send him out there to kill somebody. It was a really interesting movie, and long, but great. They were at that. When it came out, which I remember. I know you're too young for it, but everybody was looking for a movie that explained what happened in the Vietnam War, and that wasn't really it.
No.
It didn't explain anything. It made you scratch your head a little bit more. So
kind of like our podcast.
Yeah, kind of like our podcast. But you want to talk about sports, we can talk about sports too. I mean, first of all, I wanted to give a shout out to Orietta. She sent me soup and water, or else I wouldn't be drinking it today.
Oh boy.
And I probably wouldn't have been up enough. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Orietta.
Anyway, so you had the NBA All-Star Game in this new format. I don't know if you saw any of it, where this is USA against the world. It's the weirdest thing. It's, maybe they're doing the best they can to get players that played millions and millions and millions of dollars to actually play basketball.
It's a gimmick.
It is a gimmick, but
players follow the lead of other players, and it's a gimmick.
Excuse me.
Because the best player in basketball doesn't take it seriously, whereas generations before him took pride in beating the other conference in an All-Star game and having matchups between the greatest players, and they look forward to those challenges on the court.
Well, there's not a lot as far as best players go. Listen, LeBron can't take a team to the championship. He's not going to be able to take the Lakers, even with the great players he has around him. He doesn't have enough players on that team, and he can't play long enough to do it by himself. So
yeah, his role is diminished
at best.
Yeah, and it's how he accepts that role that's going to allow that team to proceed forward.
But there are a lot of emerging players. I mean,
yeah, it's a new era for sure.
There's lots of people coming, so it's a new thing, a new game. We're going to start. We're starting the second season, so to speak. A lot of talk about teams tanking already at half the season,
getting fined before the All-Star break,
getting fined $100,000, $300,000. Which is a lot of money. Obviously, they make a lot more.
Sure.
And a number one draft pick for the best player in the league would make them even more money. So it's tolerable losses, as they say. But I would say this, is that sooner or later, the commissioner has to suck it up and figure it out.
Well, these leagues, not just the NBA, created this problem because they insisted on having parity where everybody can be competitive. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's why this problem exists. And you can't have it both ways. You're either going to have a league of people who want to win, that are incentivized to win at all costs, at all times, and players that want to be there, that are vested in the future of the organization, the franchise,
Right.
and the current, you know, whatever you want to call it, CBA atmosphere, however it is, it just doesn't lend to that theory where teams aren't going to tank. Some people like the tanking, unbelievably. I can't imagine justifying it because if you're a fan, yes, I understand you want your team to lose so you can have a better draft pick, but rooting for a team to lose just to me is, you know, it's incredulous. I could never root for my team to lose a game. Um,
And I'm sorry I said 300,000 and 100,000 the NBA Thursday night, which is 5 days ago at this point. Utah Jazz was fined 500,000, a half a million
yeah,
dollars. It's not peanut, and the Pacers were fined 100,000. And the league saying both teams sat healthy players in recent games and nothing more to compromise the integrity, and this won't be tolerated. Well, when this seating people, what are, these mental health days or whatever they gave these players is ridiculous. Imagine buying tickets with your kids that you could barely afford the prices today because everybody gets paid millions of dollars, and you go there and it never
you're not
really
getting the
happened.
best effort.
You they take out all the star players. You're not
Yeah,
seeing them play.
and they disguise it under the phrase load management.
That's such a
And
bull story I ever heard in my
I
life.
agree. I
Load
agree.
load management
And
sounds like a porn film.
so
Sorry,
the you really aren't feeling well, are you?
it's
So
the Advil.
so the the NBA doesn't have an Olympics this year, but hockey does, right? And hockey gave the players 2 weeks off. And I heard somebody today talking about, basketball should be in the Winter Olympics, not the Summer Olympics. And I tend to agree with that,
Me too.
especially, when you consider that on the high school level and the collegiate level, you know, that sport is over before spring. So, or at least at the beginning of the spring. So it's a little oversaturated, if you will.
Right.
And maybe they're afraid to compete with football. But if you consider that, the All Star break in the NBA coincides with when the Winter Olympics are once every 4 years, then maybe that's something they should think about going forward and adjusting the time and length and amount of games in their season, whatever that may be. But look, it just like everything else, it's all about money. So whatever's going to make them the most money is what they're going to do, whether the fans like it or not.
Hmm, I agree with that.
Ironically, uh, one of the we mentioned earlier, Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson. I grew up in the '70s and '80s, so he was a political figure more than anything else. Someone who ran for president at one point. But learning about Jesse Jackson and reading the history, he was a major influence on the landscape of sports today, including the NBA. In the '60s, he was there in the wake of um, Tommy Smith and Juan Carlos standing at the podium with a raised fist. He helped deflect a lot of the fallout from that, and his involvement, uh, you know, changed the path for a lot of these players to have the opportunities they have today. Whether you agree with his politics or not, I think that's irrelevant in this case because he stood for the betterment and the better treatment of athletes going forward, and that affects everybody, not just athletes of color. So, I think it's important to recognize that he had a major influence on sports as well, and you continue to see that today with these collective bargaining agreements and all the different availability to players to make money and get a bigger piece of the pie for themselves, which they deserve. I know we can go back and forth on the salary cap stuff, and the NBA has a soft cap, and it doesn't really stop the super teams and whatnot and the spending, but it all comes into play when you consider that teams are tanking to win games, or to
Agreed.
not to win, tanking to get a better draft pick.
Well, if people need to rest, it should be done. There should not be games. You can't,
It's not like they play every night.
right? You can't sell a game that doesn't have the star players in it, doesn't have your best team on the floor. You just can't be.
Right.
If you need to, if the players are physically different today than they were 20 years ago, which it seems to be, they need to play less games. And if that's what it is, that's what it is. But you have to realize it's going to be less revenue.
It's well, yes and no, right? If they play less games, they're just going to raise ticket prices.
Well, they'll probably back end it. They'll probably
Right.
expand the playoffs.
They're not going to lose money on anything.
Let them sit guys in the playoffs. That's what I want to see.
Oh man, imagine that. Imagine that. But that's the world we live in today. It's funny. I was over the weekend. I was at a seminar with Buck Showalter and Ed
You
Randall.
didn't tell me about that. I'm sorry. He texts me. I'm away for the weekend. I'm in Rhinebeck, or about to get in the car to go to Rhinebeck. And he says, "Listen, I got tickets to go see Buck Showalter. Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Dude, where were you 3 days ago?"
I was a Plan B invite, so you
I was a Plan C.
Yeah. Dom and I got the text from Mike, so I immediately reached out to you. Mike was more than happy to have a ticket for you if you were interested in coming.
Right.
But yeah, he had mentioned it a couple weeks ago, and I kind of filed it with everything going on, Super Bowl and the pool, and just the plunge was just it was on the back shelf or the back burner. But I figured, what an incredible opportunity to have the chance to meet Buck Showalter, who was
Buck Showalter.
It was really incredible setting because it was at the New York Athletic Club, and he was introduced with Ed Randall, and Ed Randall does something called Fans for the Cure, and it's an endeavor to raise awareness for prostate cancer. So that kind of struck a chord, and I was more than delighted to be invited to something like that. So it was a very informal, quiet gathering. There's probably about 50 people, maybe. A couple guys brought their sons, which was nice.
Yeah. Any doctors or anything there?
No, it was mostly members. I was invited as a guest, obviously. But it was just him and Ed having a conversation, and then they opened it up to questions at the end. And Buck was gracious enough to take questions from the audience for a little while. And I found out that he does this, without taking a dime. He doesn't get paid to speak. He does it all over the country. He was there. I guess he lives in Baltimore now.
Yeah.
And he took a train up from Baltimore to be there, and then immediately left to get back on the train and go back to his wife. So a man of principles and integrity. But he did.
I would ask him about that 95. Was it 95 game that they lost to Seattle? Griffey at the end of the game.
He did briefly touch on that, but it was more. It actually was kind of a bomb that he dropped on us. That it changed my perspective. The way I thought about that for the last 30 years was that. So I initially thought that Mattingly didn't come back because George didn't. George had fired 4 of the coaches, and then Buck basically told him, "I'm not coming back." And I thought that's why Mattingly didn't come back. But what Buck told us in the interview there was that on the plane back from Seattle, and he had already described how from the end of August through September into the playoffs, Mattingly was in the trainer's office every day at 10 o'clock, having his back worked on just to get ready to play. And Buck said, you could see it on the field. He was the old Mattingly that last 3 weeks, a month of the season, and into the playoffs where he hit over 400. And it just was such an intense grind for him to be able to play. And he gave it everything he had that last month. And Buck said it was a real testament to the person that he is. But on the plane ride back, after everything was said and done, they had lost a heartbreaker, being up 2-0.
Mattingly had a home run.
He had a home run that absolutely tore the roof off the building. Buck mentioned that as well, how the emotions of the game and just everything, adrenaline, and you're up 2-0. And he gave credit to Seattle, saying, they were a good team. They had Ken Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner and Randy Johnson, and they were absolutely loaded.
A real young shortstop that
Alex Rodriguez,
they
Edgar
say
Martinez.
During the broadcast, they say, "Oh, this is a new player. It's coming up. His name is Alex Rodriguez," and they're saying he's better than anybody.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, we'll see." Meanwhile,
so it turns out that Mattingly approached Buck on the plane and told him, "I'm done." And basically, Mattingly knew that they needed to go out and find a first baseman, and he didn't want to stand in the way of that. And he knew that they had their eyes on Tino Martinez, who was also on that team, I guess. And he wanted the Yankees to be, prepared moving forward, because he knew how good they were at that time and that he couldn't go anymore. And that kind of broke me, hearing that, because it just added to who I already idolized as a kid, and still as an adult. I just think he's, the greatest player I ever saw, and an incredible human being. He also had, he needed to be with his family at that time. And, he put his family first. Not a lot of guys would do that. And I think Mattingly was only like 35 years old at the time. His career went by pretty quick when you consider it. Yeah. So it changed my perspective, because I didn't realize that was the story there. I thought George was kind of killing two birds with one stone. And then Buck mentioned that, he told George, if you're not bringing back these coaches, then I'm not staying. And he was let go. And then I guess a short time later, he is interviewing for the Arizona job. And he gets a handshake deal with the owner. And during the meeting, his wife is calling him. And he says, I can't imagine what it's got to be like an emergency. He called her, after the meeting was over, and she was like, this guy from the Yankees is calling. It was George, and he wants to be here immediately, and he's coming to the house. So he flies back from Arizona, and George is sitting in his living room. And George apologized to him and said, I want you to come back, and we'll bring back two of the coaches. And Buck said, I already made a deal. And George, did you sign anything? And he said, no, but I gave the man my word. And George was adamant about him coming back to the Yankees. And at the end, when he realized he wasn't going to get him back, he called him a stubborn German son of a what. And Buck says, I'm not even German.
Well, it's funny because I still remember when spring training came and Buck and they had just signed Torrey, and or it may have been a little bit after that, and Steinbrenner says to the media, well, I hope Buck and his little family, do okay. And everybody went, little family? What is that? So a lot of things, and I mentioned to you in the past that I have on iTunes. I tend to buy a lot of movies, but there are also sporting events that are involved, and probably I may have more than two, but the two most important ones that I bought as soon as I could when they were available was that game, Mattingly's last game where he hits the home run, and the game of the New York Giants, football Giants, playing San Francisco, the time that Eli got knocked down, that got, six times or whatever. So those are the two games that, of all my memory, are kind of pinnacle of something happening. I mean, I really, I knew at that time, I knew his back was really bad. I had heard it from others, and people involved with the team. I had a friend that was very close to the head trainer there, and they were from the same small town or whatever. And he said Mattingly's back is just ridiculous.
I was
So,
I was I was home studying for a marketing or uh, maybe an accounting class exam, and I had the TV on with the sound off, and I was listening to the radio, and I'm listening to the broadcast, and Sterling's doing the broadcast, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and I'm writing out my homework and notes and stuff. Not that it mattered. I think I failed anyway. Um, and I heard the crack of the bat, and I immediately looked up, and I saw the ball, headed out to right center field, and I'm like, oh my god! And I absolutely lost my shit. I got up. My mother heard me screaming. She got out of bed. What's going on? Natalie hit a home run, and it was you didn't have DVR back then, and you didn't have I wasn't taping the game or anything like that. So I couldn't, rewind it to see it. I immediately turned the volume up. I had both things on at one time. And I just remember watching it afterwards. The call afterwards was hold on to the roof. And I mean, my hair's just standing up now thinking about it. I thought they were going to win the World Series after that. And ironically, Mattingly had that double in Seattle in game 5 that cleared the bases. And they sent Ruben Sierra back to third base because it was a ground rule double. And had he had scored, they would have had that extra run late in the game. It wouldn't have been tied.
right.
And, if that game's played on grass or dirt, maybe that's, a double in the run scores and the Yankees win. So that series was important because it changed the format, even though it was brand new. The playoffs, if you remember, they played 2 at Yankee Stadium, but then they played 3 in Seattle. So, home field advantage makes a difference for sure.
Yeah, I remember that game very completely. It
Yeah,
was
Buck had some good stories. He talked about Billy Martin and how uh, how his coaching career started with the Yankees. And
he was in AAA, right?
he was in the minors. I forgot what city he was in, but he was a player, and he basically got to the point where he said, I hit 287 or 297, but I knew I wasn't, I had to make a decision. And they asked him to coach, and he said yes. And in spring training, Billy used to bring all the coaches to spring training because Billy wanted full autonomy. He said, if we're going to teach these young kids, I want them to play baseball the way I want them to play when they get to the big leagues. And we talked about that before, how sometimes we watch these games and these players can't, they get caught in a rundown, they get picked off, or they can't make simple plays, routine plays that are fundamental to the game. And Buck mentioned that Billy was on top of all of those things, that they were very well prepared. You always mentioned being prepared to play in these games. So he was on staff and he's in the dugout, and he said they had traded a player to the Chicago White Sox. It was a pitcher. I can't remember his name. I'm sure if Dom was listening, he'll remember the name. But the pitcher had a fear of throwing over to first base. And the Yankees traded him to the White Sox, and they bring him in this extra inning game, and Bobby Meacham is on first base. And Billy starts asking questions. Who knows this guy? Who's got a line on this guy? Who can tell? Who's got a scouting report on this guy? So Buck says, if I say something and it's wrong, I'm never going to coach again. But if I don't say anything and he ends up winning the game for them, and then Billy finds out that I knew, I'm screwed. So he raises his hand sheepishly, and Billy says, what do you got? He says, well, he doesn't really like to throw over to first base. So Billy starts screaming at the first base coach, get Meacham off the bag, get him to take a big lead. Lo and behold, the pitcher, after faking the throw so many times, throws the ball over Ron Kittle's head at first base. Meacham gets to third base, and the Yankees win on a sacrifice fly to end the game. This is extra innings in spring training baseball. So afterwards, Billy says to Buck, you're coming out with us tonight, kid. And he throws him the car keys. And Buck says, little did I know I was going to be the designated driver. But I was just so happy that Billy liked me, I would have done anything. And then one of the other coaches, I think he said it was Torborg, or I think he said, "You think you did all right, huh, kid?" He goes, "You're in for a hell of a night."
That's right.
And he
He-
he said, Billy was like that every night, but the one thing that he commended him for was those guys were ready and up to work at whatever time in the morning without question and without fail. Different generation for sure. Different breed of guys.
Absolutely, and said to you that I had a friendship with a very casual friendship for a short period of time with um, a pitcher from the Yankees, and he played for the Yankees in Cleveland. Super Chief Reynolds, Allie Reynolds, and he was given or he told me he was given the duty to make sure at one point when he first came on that Mickey made it to the game, and he would
Incredible.
go by his house and he'd find him laying passed out in the front lawn. And he said that him and they would take showers and whatever it is, and we all know Mickey. I mean, there isn't a handful of bad games he ever had,
Yeah.
and just imagine going there and then you had Billy and Whitey was another one. I would see him at autograph sessions, and uh, they'd all be in an autograph session together when they were older, and they were all shit faced the whole time. So, whatever he said that it was quite difficult. He really drank. He
Players
said
today,
he
I
really
mean, they,
believed
they
that he
really
thought
did
he
take
would.
care of themselves
Right.
so much so that they couldn't. I can't imagine them being like that even once a week.
and and he said he thought he was going to die at a very young age because his father died at a young
Yeah,
age. You know,
I think he resigned himself to that, and it was too late once he realized he didn't have to live that way.
and and I think of what things my dad said that why did you get all these tattoos, Dad? And he said, well, I'm in the South Pacific and there were planes coming in and trying to smash into our ship and sink it. He goes, I didn't think I was going to live. So
Yeah,
what's different of a tattoo? Because he
right.
didn't really like them. That was the strangest part about it.
Huh.
So, you think about that, you're not going to survive, and that's the way it is. So that's a great event. I'm sorry I missed it. I
Yeah,
would have been all over that.
I'm optimistic that we might be able to pull something like that off at the club, especially since Ed Randall is an advocate for prostate cancer awareness. That might resonate with some of our members. So, for those listening, if you want, you can go to fansforthecure.org, um, and you can reach out to Ed Randall through the website. But apparently, they do this, all over the place, and I guess there are, athletes, former ball players, whatnot. Ed Randall is a New York sports radio, host, announcer, etc. Very well known here, um, and incredibly gracious person. Took time to come to our table and speak to us face to face and shook hands with us and said he's willing to go wherever that he can to spread awareness. And if it makes a difference in just one person's life, he's all for it. I thought that was incredibly magnanimous.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience, not personal experience, but with family members with prostate cancer, and have had everybody from having either the radioactive seed to total removal to robotic um, old fashioned removal and other kinds of radiation things. It's really obviously for a man it's a tough choice, right? And it's
One in
very
8 men.
complicated. So I mean, and whatever it is, and you know, it's a tough decision, and you try to do the best you can. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, let's switch gears a little bit. You want to get
Yeah.
off baseball, or you want to talk more about baseball? You want to while we're on baseball, you want to talk about what's going on um, with the Players
Yeah, so
Association
Tony
and
Clark, who's been the president for the Players Union for the last dozen or so plus years, stepped down today in the midst of this brewing scandal about, I guess it's misappropriation of funds, is probably the best way to say it.
Hmm.
So there's an ongoing investigation now into the Players Union sponsoring these, I don't know what you call them, charities.
Right.
I know one was a youth sports organized type thing where they got a $4 million grant somewhere to host events for children, and I guess they only had a few events, and there was more money there than necessary, and it didn't go where it was supposed to go. So I think this is probably because I can't imagine Major League Baseball not working in tandem with the Players Union when it comes to events for children, but um, I think this is the first shot across the bow at the Players Union to kind of weaken their infrastructure in knowing that we're headed towards a stoppage in play. And since we just talked about Ed Randall and Buck Showalter, they didn't really uh, talk about it in depth, but they both agreed that the owners are willing to stop play for 2 years if they don't get what they want in negotiations. And that is pretty scary because it took years to come back from the strike in 94, where baseball attendance got back.
Some
Uh,
people never went back.
some people never went back. That is correct. And, time is going to heal that wound because you're talking about brand new generations that have no idea what happened back then. But if you look at the landscape today, you know, people can almost not access baseball games as it is, and I can't imagine they're not interest isn't waning in the sport because it's all I don't want to say corrupted. It's geared towards making more revenue, right? So you have all these streaming networks paying to televise baseball that nobody's watching. So the sport is in big trouble for sure. And this is going to get really ugly unless somebody comes in at the 11th hour with a deal that satisfies both sides, and I just don't see that happening.
I don't, I'm reading the latest statement right now, and I have to say I don't listen. I've represented labor unions for a good part of my life, and I understand them. You big ones, little ones, and I understand them. Listen, nepotism and misappropriation happens all the time.
Yep.
All right, you're not, and probably more in not as much in baseball, but when you're talking about some labor unions, the people that run it are made up of the members, of one of the members, right? You have to be a member to vote. So they're sometimes not educated. And I don't mean they're dumb. I just mean that they're not sophisticated enough to understand what fiduciary duty is.
Yeah.
Um, and the for our listeners, my definition I would give that is to treat um, all the money that you're in charge of as if it was your own, and that's an important part. And there is something called I don't know. It does apply for some benefit funds that labor union has, and it's called the exclusive benefit rule, and that is that the money you're spending can only be spent for the exclusive benefit of the members and no other reason.
Yeah.
So those are important traits to remember. And so it's hard. I agree with you. There is a hard salary cap coming here. Um,
It's it's it's
and
a
I don't think
tough it's a tough
it's
thing to
gonna
negotiate
yeah, I don't
or
think it's gonna
manage.
be like the NBA
No, it can't
where
be.
where you have this salary cap, but if you're a player that's important to them and has played there, a veteran player, they have this veteran role or whatever it is. I don't really understand it, so I don't mean to explain it, but there is. I think it's going to be more like football. That here's the number, and that's what it's going to be. Certainly, I would think that the money that the Dodgers had been spending more recently in these bizarre ways of taking apart and put it together, where things are paid off over time, and and try to affect how much money people are getting paid at that time. I think they did all those things because they knew the cap was coming.
Yeah, of course. I
So
think they did it. I think they were allowed to do it to force this issue.
maybe.
That's if you want to talk collusion, but it's just plain as day to me anyway. That I mean, look at the inflated salaries that these guys got in the wake of that this year. You know,
Well, you heard what Steve Cohen said the other day.
he's so full of garbage. I have just as
You
much
heard
money as
that?
the
You heard him what
Dodgers.
he said
Yeah, but
about
you
I
you
have.
didn't
He
spend
goes,
any, did you?
I could spend exactly
Yeah,
what they spend, and they're willing to do that. But you
spoken
didn't
like a
do
true
it.
billionaire. He didn't do it. Yeah, like that's just a guy whose
So
feathers are ruffled and can't take. He's well, I won't say it, but he's very much like somebody else who can't take criticism in this country and has to let you know that he's the richest guy in the room. I don't care. You can't have it both ways. Either you're going to spend the money or you're not going to spend the money. When it comes to this labor issue, both sides are guilty as far as I'm concerned. And shame on both of them for allowing it to continue all these years without getting a real concrete deal done and only sufficing the short term for the players now, which seems to be the case all the time. Remember, Drew Brees he didn't care about the future players. He wanted his now, and that was a whole issue then. But the money is obviously the bottom line here. And where the money comes from is an issue, and how that money is spent. And the CBA is going to determine, is it a 50-50 split? Is it 60-40? Do the players get more? Do the owners get more? Who deserves the money? I mean, it could go on for a long time. What is best for the integrity of the game is what I'd like to see. I don't know that they have the wherewithal or the foresight to make that happen. So I think it's going to get ugly quick, and you know there's going to be the streaming networks and all the money they have, if they want to televise this stuff, is going to be a factor. The gambling is a factor, and all of the entities that want a piece of this, and the players getting the money from that. What just happened with these two pitchers, and there's probably more stuff that we don't know about that went on with gambling and players and prop bets and things of that nature.
right.
The law that was overturned in 2018, the player and the professional and amateur sports, whatever it was, rule. All those things are factors that help lead to this, and they have to, consider all of those things, because that's going to linger if you don't iron that out. To me, it's kind of a cut and dry thing if they weren't so greedy. And again, players deserve to get paid whatever they can get, whether there's a salary cap or not. I don't begrudge anybody their money. That's why we pay to watch. But it is a business, and the owners want a profit. How much profit do they need? They're already billionaires. So, I don't know the answer to that. What's a fair number? That's for lawyers and a lot smarter people than I have to figure out. But if they don't come to an agreement that includes some sort of revenue sharing and allows everyone to be on an even playing field, where you have entities that streaming network versus Yes Network, uh, local TV versus SNY versus streaming, gambling versus. There's just so many things to factor in here. I think they need to kind of clear the slate and somehow find a way to start from scratch
Right.
and build it back so that it's more concrete going forward, and they don't have these lingering issues year after year.
Yeah. Salary cap is needed. All right. I don't know if that helps the weaker teams. Originally, that was the reason, right? And that's why
Yeah,
it works in the NFL. But let's not forget the other thing the NFL has: revenue sharing. All right. So to put a salary cap in without revenue sharing seems crazy to me.
if you put a
Because
salary cap in that under the guise of helping the weaker teams, the reality of the weaker teams is that they're presumably small market teams with owners that don't spend money.
right.
So you can give them revenue sharing, but that still doesn't mean they're going to spend the money responsibly. Look at the Oakland A's. I think that's a prime example. The one team I think that you could use as a model for that would be Tampa Bay, right? Tampa Bay figured out a way to maximize talent on the field and do that with a minimum amount of payroll, to their credit. Whether or not that's good for baseball, I couldn't tell you yes or no. But I do know that from watching this game for 50 years, that the level of talent on these rosters is not what it was when I was a kid, even 15 or 20 years ago. And that's a direct result of where the money is and how the money is being spent. They forced out players, right? You don't see veteran players lasting as long. Yes, the good ones will last, but there used to be veteran players in every team that helped these younger players come along. Now you could say, well, they're keeping spots from younger guys. But like we talked before about, if the younger guys don't know how to play this game, they don't belong at this level. You're paying to see professionals play. And sometimes you go to these games or you even watch it on TV. Some of these guys do not look like pro ball players.
Mm-hmm.
And these are guys that not just rookies. These are guys that have been in the league for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Even some of the top end talent, you wonder sometimes, you scratch your head, what was he thinking on that play? That's a veteran? So I think the talent is there, but the fundamentals and the baseball acumen, baseball IQ has suffered greatly as a result.
They have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's gonna be ugly.
And being off for 2 years is not going to help.
No, it's really not going to help. It's
And what's
I
going
don't.
to happen really is that there's going to become a vacuum of young players because people aren't going to be trying to make it the Major League Baseball because there's no jobs because they're going to be out for 2 years. So they're going to go
If
to
they
other
really love the
sports.
sport, yeah, they're going to be, they're going to be scrambling for jobs on the collegiate level. Maybe they're looking at jobs overseas. There might be openings for people that will want to take a chance to go to the, Japanese league or baseball in another country, but MLB is where the money's at ultimately.
Boy, did you see? And I didn't see it, but I heard people talking about it, the article in the Atlantic about the Jets and how not to change to football. It just popped into my head. And maybe we talked. Was there anything else we want to talk about with baseball before
No,
we
I
switch
think
gears?
that's it on baseball.
um, I can't believe the article that I heard them talking about, and I haven't read it, and that's my fault. In the Atlantic, and there may be a series of articles talking about how dysfunctional the Jets are. Now we know that, right?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read that, but one of my friends was talking about it, and
And that he's impossible to work for.
yeah,
I told you he's like the Emperor's new clothes. I've always thought that.
yeah. My buddy said that there's some cheap shots at the Jets, but I think he's speaking as a fan. I don't think he's defending Woody. But it's not the first time we've heard that, right?
Right.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. I think you don't need to look any further than the two Bills, right? Parcells and Belichick when they did their little E60 or whatever it was.
Two-step.
They just didn't even want to go in the Jet locker room and talk about any of that. And that was a big factor, or for Jet fans it was. That was the last time the Jets were really relevant, in my opinion.
Right.
Not to disparage Rex or some of the others, but you really felt like that was their time, and they were influential.
Speaking of Rex, you saw that there's some talk that that the Giants may be talking to him about being defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I know he coached for Harbaugh in 2008, the year I think before they went to the Super Bowl, or was it the year they went to this? Might have been the year they went to Super Bowl. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you're getting qualified coaching.
Come on, he's a defensive. His dad was a defensive.
Yeah, yeah.
Legend of legends, right?
He's been away from the game as a coach for a few years, but he's got his spot on ESPN, and he's still, you could tell, he's still very passionate about the game and he wants to be around the players. He got emotional during one of the interviews about, I forgot which player it was, but Rex has a
Excuse
lot of
me.
passion for this game, and you want
Right.
that in your locker room. You want a guy that is fired up and can get the players, especially on defense. You want somebody who can control their emotion for them, kind of thing, lead by example. And I always felt that Rex, deflected a lot of uh, arrows from the players because he was so boisterous and outspoken. Um, I think he'll fit right in on that staff, and I think they'll love him again. And he'll have some sound bites that might get them in trouble, but it'll be on him. It won't be on the players, and that will allow them to grow and mature and
Right.
be a better defense.
So I've been looking at a bunch of the mock drafts, and I put some stuff together. Um, and I just can't believe that there are knowledgeable football people out there that are saying the Raiders shouldn't draft the number one quarterback. I
Yeah. So
understand that they need other players,
yeah,
but okay, spend a year doing that. Even if he doesn't play this guy, you draft him, you pay him a lot of money, you play him a little bit, you don't let him get out there. But I don't understand. To me, he's the best quarterback I've seen in a long time in the draft.
yeah. So there's people that think, regardless of who has the pick, that Mendoza is a system quarterback, that he can only play under certain conditions, that he's not the talent that this guy or that guy is, et cetera, et cetera. And that there's more value in the number one pick than drafting a quarterback. And I will say that historically, I believe wholeheartedly in trading the number one pick and fleecing somebody, because it seems historically not to work out for the teams that draft quarterbacks number one.
I
But in
agree.
this particular case,
Right.
you have a quarterback who is 6'5". He's been a starter for 2 years. He's won a major bowl or championship, whatever you want to call it. He fits the criteria, I think 7 out of 8 or 6 out of 7 from the Bill Parcells list of bullet points that you want your quarterback to have coming out of college. He's coachable. He's likable. He's accountable. He's got all the intangibles. So they need to stabilize that organization. They brought in the coach for exactly that reason. Somebody who can work with the quarterback, a guy who just won Sam Darnold the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. What more could you ask for in terms of a setup for this quarterback, this franchise, and the coaching staff? It's all there for them. To not take Mendoza would be insane.
I agree.
And it's going to come down to, Tom Brady is going to probably, in my opinion, it seems to me like Tom is all in on Mendoza. He
Who's
loves him.
arguing with Who's arguing with Tom Brady
Well, you can't.
about
That's why they brought him in.
right? That's why
You
they
know,
brought him.
and if ownership goes against Tom Brady, then why did you bring him in? Then you're just being like your father and meddling for whatever. Now, could you make the
But I don't
argument?
think he has. I don't think his this Davis. I forget his first name. I don't think he has that gene anymore. He may have had it when he was younger. Now he's old, and he's like, everybody, just figure it out. I'll
I
write a
believe
check.
that.
Everybody, figure it out.
I believe that, but the one thing that I'd be weary of, well, there's two things. But one, the primary thing is this worst to first mentality, which adds to what we've talked about previously, where they bring quarterbacks in as rookies and they start them and they expect to win and go to a Super Bowl immediately. That is just unrealistic. I'm not saying it'll never happen. It's just unrealistic. So that I'd be worried about. Plus, their situation with Max Crosby is they have to figure that out. I think he's going to end up getting traded, but he's hurt, so it's probably not going to happen until August, if it does happen. I think they're in a good position. Draft a quarterback. Bring this guy along. Do the 5-year plan. What is it going to hurt your organization at this point? plus it gives a brand new fan base something to root for and something to rally around. You get this brand new quarterback in there. And it creates interest and buzz and all those things. Um, as far as making the argument for trading the pick, because I don't think the argument is to take any other player. It's not Arvell Reese. It's not what's the other guy's name? There's like three guys in the Ohio State defense that are really talented. But the combine is going to determine some of this, right? Once they go to the combine, the cream always rises to the top. Unless you're the Jets. so
right. It's the three guys are, at least I believe, Arvell Reese, right?
Yep.
Caleb Downs, the safety.
Downs is yep. And there's one more guy.
And the other one is Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from there. And then I don't know who the other defense.
There's one more guy on defense that's really good. But again,
Sonny Styles.
Sonny Styles, yeah, that's it. So those guys are going to go places. You know, they're going to get highly recruited, or scouted. They're football players, presumably not like Vernon Golston, but there are no red flags yet that I'm aware of. But again, this will all come out in the combine. So until we get past the combine, I don't think there's really much to talk about. Now, theoretically, yes, the number one pick is extremely valuable, especially since there's a quarterback at the top. But who do you trade that pick to, and what are you getting back? Unless you're getting back,
unless you have that
four
Dallas
number ones,
deal, whoever it was it Herschel Walker?
Herschel, yeah, you got to get a deal like that. I mean, and Herschel, that still puts
Herschel was a little bit past his prime too at that time.
Yeah,
and they got a great deal, right?
Yeah, and it puts you back even further, regardless of the amount of draft picks you get, because you have to hit on those picks. Dallas got Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, right? Did they already have Troy Aikman? They got a few guys out of that were very prominent in their championship.
They had Aikman, but they got it was like 11 players or something.
Yeah, so you could make the argument that the pick is more valuable than the player. I understand that, but in this particular case, you're getting a franchise quarterback, and it's a no-brainer or no doubter. And for those that detract because of the system, they're the same people that said Tom Brady was a system quarterback, which I don't believe. This kid can make the throws. If he shows in the combine that he can make all these throws, or if he has his pro day or whatever, and he throws in his pro day. Now, if he doesn't throw and there's question marks, you still got to work him out, right? They're going to work these players out in-house regardless. So they're going to have to showcase his talent at some point, and they'll make a decision. If there's a red flag, they'll find it.
Right. So here's something else that I wanted to talk about regarding the draft coming on. And so Mendoza goes to the Raiders. I mean, at the very least, he goes to the Raiders. If not, he's going to somebody else. He's not going to the Jets, right? The Jets have second pick. They're saying they're looking for an edge, and Alva Reese is probably the best defensive player in the draft, without a doubt. Ohio State.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets traded the pick, because there's still a lot of value there.
To me, if I was a team that had a great offense and saw how defense won the Super Bowl this year, I'd be all over this pick. So it's more than just getting the pick, okay? First of all, number 2 still gets a big contract, right? He doesn't get like a regular rookie contract. Right. 1 gets a big contract. 2 gets a lesser contract, but gets a better than a rookie contract. And the other thing is, you have to be committed. If you're going to take a guy that plays like this, you realize when after that rookie contract is over, you're going to have to write a check. If you're not willing to write that check for anybody that you draft under number 2, if he's playing like a number 2 first-round draft pick, you're going to let him go into free agency and go with someone else in 5 years, get rid of the pick.
Get rid of the pick. Which I'm going to tell you, The Jets are set up for that, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but we talked about how this general manager is different than what they've had in the past, and I'd love the idea, regardless of this situation, of trading and fleecing somebody, because in this situation, it's clear in a way that people think the Jets are going to take Arvel Reese. And I'm not saying he's not worth the number 2 pick or that he's not worth it for them, but when you consider that a player like Chubb is available because the Dolphins cut him, and I know he's come, he had a knee injury, whatever. Just that there's players available out there that you could pay right now and lock them up for 4 or 5 years. You might consider, hey, you know what? Instead of taking the edge rusher here, why don't we sign this guy and trade this pick, or trade the pick and sign this guy? And if you get back the right amount of picks to set you up for the next 2 or 3 drafts, including this one, because you're going to get something back in this one, and you still have a number 1 pick. I think they have the 16th or the 14th, whatever the hell they have. They have 2 first-round picks. If they trade that number 2 and they get back, 2 first-round picks in the future, plus something else, plus second round, third round pick, whatever it is, let's say they make a Herschel Walker type deal or something to that effect. Look at the deal the Bears made. A few years ago, the Bears fleeced somebody, and look what they ended up with. They're a pretty good football team right now. So I think the Jets have to seriously consider that, because with all due respect to Arvel Reese and Sonny Styles and whoever else is coming off that defense, I don't know that Lawrence Taylor is in this draft. I don't know that, Reggie White is in this draft. So if you can go out and sign a talent and trade that pick and get back, a plethora of picks that will allow you to fill out this roster going forward, that might be the best move. So we'll see. And they still need a quarterback, and there won't be a quarterback available. At least not a franchise quarterback.
So let's jump down to number 5, the New York Giants. I just have that same argument. Are the Giants ever going to pay a safety that big money that it's going to take? If this guy, they say he's amazing, if he is the number 1 safety in all of football, when his rookie contract lets out, are the Giants going to pay him? And if they're not, they got to make an educated decision here.
Yeah.
They got to let it go. They got to either draft a player, an edge player, which they would probably be willing to pay, or some player like that. If they're not going to, they're better off trading that pick, and it's number 5, it's not as much, but it's still first round, and you don't know.
I don't believe that Joe Schoen has the wherewithal to make a deal there. If a deal is made, it's going to be because Harbaugh said he wants to make the deal and Schein signs off on it, and that's it.
Right.
So whether or not it works, it'll be in a position where Schoen can look back and say, well, I did what Harbaugh wanted, and if it works, he looks like a genius, and if it doesn't work, he can blame Harbaugh. That's not a good position to be in. I know that there's a lot of optimism surrounding the Giants right now, but there's a lot of question marks still there. And I'm not knocking Harbaugh at all. It's just things are not as rosy as they might seem for the Giants.
I agree. I don't know, these people, they're like the number 1 bet to win the Super Bowl.
I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's 65-1.
I mean, they do have a talented defense. They have players on defense. So if they get the right,
if you were telling me number 1 guy to win their division because they're going to have an easy schedule and things could fall right, to me that's a bet. To win the Super Bowl, dream on.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's teams that couldn't get it together that are really good.
Oh yeah.
You have Baltimore. You have Baltimore. You have Baltimore.
Kansas City.
Buffalo. You got Kansas City. I don't know who they are.
Philadelphia is another one in the division. That even the Cowboys too. The Cowboys aren't a bad. They got a lot of talent there if they straighten it out.
I mean, so just going through this ESPN mock draft. So number 3, they have offensive tackle. So Matt LaFleur, he's the Mike LaFleur. He's the new thing, offensive tackle. then Titans going to draft an edge. They don't need an offensive tackle. I mean, I can't believe everybody isn't drafting an offensive tackle.
Well,
But
this kind of plays into what we talked about. I mentioned, I know you
or
didn't like
wide
the idea, but
receivers. I'm
the,
looking at
the
I'm looking at the Chiefs. They're drafting a running back, and
yeah,
not that there's it's a good running back can really help you. I said, but
I don't think the Chiefs are going to draft a running back. I think they
neither
have their
do
running
I.
back in house.
I think they're going to either line because they need the line, and it's a disaster, or wide receiver if there's one available that they really want to
Yeah,
go up for. You know what? And they got to do something with their defense. Oh my god.
yeah.
I mean, they got a lot of things.
They have more holes than most people realize.
They have the
That running
talent.
back is not going to. I mean, yeah, you could make the argument they want the running back from Notre Dame because they need to protect Patrick Mahomes. But again, like you said, what are they doing with that offensive line? How are they going to run the football if they don't have an offensive line? How are they going to protect the quarterback without an offensive line?
And the Jets also have the 16th pick, and they have Caleb Banks, who's a defensive tackle from Florida. I mean, he's a good player. He had some kind of injury though. Banks is limited to just 3 games this season due to injury.
That's a pick that you have to hit on. You can't miss there. And historically, the Jets seemingly always miss, but there can't be a player with question marks. It has to be an incredibly talented athlete or specific position need, not cornerback, because I just don't believe in drafting corners in the first round unless their name is Deion Sanders or Charles Woodson. But, that's the caliber of player you have to get with a pick like that. There can't
Right.
be any question marks. You have to get a football player. And it can't be a reach and it can't be a project and all that other stuff. It's got to be someone who can step in and play right away.
So
Could be a wide receiver.
looking down at the list, you got Dallas with an edge. That makes sense. Pittsburgh Steelers with a quarterback, Ty Simpson from Alabama.
Someone linked the Jets. Was it the Jets? I've heard his name come up a couple of times. I don't have a problem with that, but are the Steelers bringing back Aaron Rodgers? Because that was what they were talking about today, that there was interest there, which I couldn't believe.
Well, he wants to play another year. Where's he going to go?
Well, why go to a different organization at this point if you're Aaron
Right.
Rodgers and you only want to come back for one more year? Why not go back to the Steelers? I mean, there is talent
agree.
there. They have weapons on offense. They have a decent running game. Talented backs. They have 3 monster tight ends. One in particular. They have 2 good wide receivers. So
So
their
you're the one.
defense needs to be better. But
So you're the one that talked about Cleveland. So let's look at the picks that they have out there for Cleveland, which is interesting. They have offensive tackle at number 6. Anytime you can draft a good offensive tackle in today's world, you just do it.
I agree.
And if he plays that well, you're going to pay him when
Yep.
the contract's up. Then they also have.
I think not to change course, but
Wait, they also have number 24, which they're going to draft a wide receiver.
they
Which is
haven't
interesting.
targeted. Yeah, they need help everywhere. So
They need help everywhere,
Yeah.
and you have to say to yourself, I guess they're going to go with their quarterback.
I don't I don't have a problem with that. I think there's a lot of fodder. Let's not forget that Shedeur Sanders was a rookie, and he's a young guy, and he's a walking soundbite, and there's a lot of ability there. It's just a matter of whether or not he's coachable. If he's coachable, you move forward with him. If it doesn't work out, at least you tried. If he's uncoachable, and that their quarterback situation is a mess. Him, Watson is still there, right? We don't even know if that guy's ever coming back to play football or not, and they still have to pay him. Gabriel, and who was the starter this year for Joe Flacco, who's I'm assuming they traded for Joe Flacco, right?
Yeah, he's not.
From what, or did they trade him? Well, I can't remember now. Who got Flacco went to Cincinnati. So this is why the coach has to have autonomy here, because he's got to make the decisions. He knows what he wants his football team to look like. He has to have his personnel in there. And if none of these guys are who he wants to move forward with, then you have to cut bait.
I agree.
And
So,
more power to him if he thinks he can work with Shedeur Sanders, because he is talented. Is he NFL talented? Like I said, he's a rookie. It remains to be seen. So it's low-hanging fruit. When he has a bad game, you're going to say, see, he sucks. But they said the same thing about other quarterbacks that went on to win Super Bowls. So it's the same thing. I'm not saying he's Eli Manning. I'm not saying he's Sam Darnold. Just saying that he has enough talent to be there. If he's coachable, then let them coach.
yeah.
But some of this draft stuff and the money in the draft comes down to where they draft. And I'm more and more a believer in turning these drafts around. And, to the victor goes the spoils. You win the Super Bowl, you get the first pick. They're not taking the quarterback.
It's so
maybe
funny.
the Seahawks.
I'm looking, when I was looking at the thing, I happened to see best transfer portal additions to the
Indiana.
top 20 Indiana draft.
Yeah.
Josh Hoover from TCU.
Yeah. They had a very good portal, if you will. They're bringing in more talent. It's like they're replacing what they lost, and they're going to be right back at it.
Unbelievable. The Irish picked up a big defensive tackle from Oregon. Georgia Bulldogs picked
that
up
was a
an
big
edge
one. Yeah.
From Auburn. Oregon,
that's a coup.
Oregon got a safety from Minnesota. Ohio Buckeyes, all their defense went the way of the draft. They picked up a defensive tackle from Alabama. Talk about musical chairs.
That's unusual to see a guy go from the SEC to the Big Ten. Usually,
Texas Tech got Brenda Sorsby from Cincinnati. The Hurricanes got the quarterback from Duke, Darian, looks like Messiah. It's interesting.
The portal has changed so many things, and this NIL money and all that stuff. It's
You think it makes it harder? I think it makes it easier. You don't have to go run around to these kids' houses.
Well, Rick Pitino talked about that. Rick Pitino talked about changing philosophy, right? Because he was playing freshman,
right,
and now he doesn't have to do that anymore because he can go cherry pick talent from all across the country in the portal. And who doesn't want to play for Rick Pitino? So it definitely has changed the landscape for sure. It's listen, it's the Wild West still. It'll even out at some point, and I'm sure things will settle down.
Yeah, but if you
eventually
think about it, you can work on building the rest of your team, right? Look for good players, build it, and then at the end of the day, you cherry pick a quarterback.
Yeah, you go to and things are so specialized now. They have these quarterback camps, and these kids go to these specialized, with these coaches, and they have targets on them and eyeballs on them, and where they didn't have before. I don't know if it's good or bad, but because some kids don't have the opportunity, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. But presumably, you're getting the best of the best eventually. But you still, ultimately, the eyeball test is still paramount to everything. You have to see a kid play.
I agree. So, we're not far from F1.
How about before we get to F1, Daytona? Michael Jordan, his team won Daytona.
Did you see the race? Did you see the race?
I did not see the race because
there was like a crash. Oh, that's right. There was I saw it afterwards. there was a whole bunch of crafts, 20 cars or whatever.
Yeah.
And his guy was in the middle of this bunch at the end of the race, like third, fourth, or fifth.
Sure.
They all crash. He goes sailing through on the final lap at the checkered flag and wins.
That is absolutely incredible. And, you know, for what it's worth, to see Michael Jordan holding that trophy and become emotional.
Oh, my God.
The competitive spirit has not left. He's still the ultimate competitor.
And he caught him by surprise. He caught everybody by surprise.
Yeah.
And not that they weren't a good team. They just weren't in position to win at the end of the game.
Listen, it's part of the sport. And to do it at Daytona, regardless.
I agree.
It's incredible. It's an incredible feat. You'll never see that again. To see an NBA champion or a champion of any of the four major sports go on to be an owner in a completely different sport and win a championship, that's incredible.
Right.
Absolutely incredible.
I agree.
And good for him. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy for him. I think that creates a buzz for NASCAR that didn't exist before, and it gives credence to a lot of things that people had doubts about before, and it puts to bed some of the exterior stuff that NASCAR has experienced in the last 10 years. And it just goes to show you that they've embraced Michael Jordan. He's not an outsider. He's one of them. He's very much a part of the sport, and he's not going anywhere. And it's going to open doors for other people too.
I agree. And having said that, I think just F1 briefly, where the first race is March 6th through 8th in Australia, then China. But they've been testing. They tested at Bahrain. They're testing again. It was the first 11th through 13th. Then now 18th through 20 in Bahrain.
Is that like a spring training for them?
Yeah, they go there and they test their cars on the track, and people go to watch, and it's been a little.
Have they unveiled the new cars?
Yeah, they have the cars on the track, and they're running through their tests.
Right.
So
are these just time trials, or is it actual races?
No, it's time. It's like testing. You try to run a time, and they keep. Oh my God, Fantasy F1. Can you believe they have that? Oh my God. Yeah. So that's where that sits. So, but I think that's just about everything this week. I mean.
Yeah.
What do you think? We're good? We went a lot longer than I felt like I was going to be able to do.
You did good. You did real good.
Well, I got a text during the thing that my microphone was too low. So we'll see. I'll have to fix that in post, as they say. So either way you look at it, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Next week, we'll be back at our regular time. And we're going to be talking about all the things that make sports great and the things that make them horrible. So here we go. Thank you very much. Talk to you all. Please like and subscribe us on YouTube, and you can find us also at StephenJustin.com. All our back recordings and things. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.